I want it to. Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today is a special episode of Dessert Person. I am exploring the wide world of buttercream, how to make 3 different styles. It's gonna be a really fun video. Obviously, we're going to be using a ton of butter today. Sounds like a good time. Let me start by saying that there is a style of buttercream called American buttercream. And that is probably the style most people have made before if you've ever made a type of frosting. And it is a very simple combination of butter, powdered sugar, often a little bit of milk, something like that, you know, maybe some cocoa powder if you're doing chocolate, but that's it. So it's a very, very sweet, very rich frosting. Today, I'm not making that. And if you go to other episodes where I've made a cream cheese frosting, that is a version of an American style buttercream. I got no problem with it, it's great, but it is a very sweet style. Today, I'm doing an entirely different kind of buttercream, which is European buttercream. So there's 3 styles of doing it, and this is a kind of buttercream that is based on eggs, typically egg whites. So it's like a meringue-based frosting, and that means that it tends to be a little lighter, a little silkier, a little less sweet. So the 3 styles are Swiss, Italian, and French. And at the end, I'm gonna have a whole bunch of buttercream, but it's okay because you can freeze it. All of the styles have eggs as their base. Swiss and Italian use egg whites, so you make a meringue. French is a little different because we are using a combination of whole eggs plus yolks. The most important thing when you're making buttercream is temperature, and you want all of your ingredients to be at room temperature. So the butter I've had out, I cut it into tablespoon-sized pieces. The butter should have a kind of waxy texture. This butter is pliable, it has a kind of plastic quality, like I can work it and mold it. That's what you want. You will need a stand mixer. Let's talk about special equipment. I really wouldn't attempt to make a buttercream in this style without a stand mixer. You can use a hand mixer. You would probably have to make it in smaller quantities. So go ahead and get out your stand mixer, have your whisk attachment and your paddle handy. It is very, very handy to have an instant read thermometer when you are making basically any of the European buttercream styles, particularly Italian, but I'm gonna use it in Swiss because I'm gonna take the temperature of the eggs to make sure that the egg whites are pasteurized. So the ingredients are straightforward. Obviously, butter. I have 3 sticks here. Then I'm using 3 large egg whites, room temperature, 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, a little bit of kosher salt, a little bit of cream of tartar that helps to stabilize the meringue, plus a little vanilla bean, vanilla extract. You could use one or both. The first thing I want to do is take my stand mixer bowl. This is a stainless steel bowl, so it's heat proof because I'm going to actually put this on my double boiler. So I'm going to combine my egg whites, then a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. So cream of tartar is an acid, bitartrate of potassium. I don't know what that is. It's an acid, it helps to stabilize your meringue. And then my sugar. Also, a little salt. I like to add the salt at this stage because then I know it fully dissolves. So I have all of those ingredients together. I'm going to now put it onto my saucepan of hot water, whisk this together until the sugar is fully dissolved, and I will have this very almost like stringy, syrupy, thick mixture. And after that, I'm going to continue to warm it until I get 160 to register on my thermometer. If you want to really make sure that your egg whites are pasteurized and food safe, then you go to 160. When you're whisking and you want to, you're like, maybe it's dissolved. Here's how you tell. Take a tiny dab of the mixture on your fingertip and then rub it between 2 fingers. If you feel no grit, then you're dissolved. Oh, I'm there. I'm at 160. And now I'm going to start to whip this, get it into a really glossy, dense, and beautiful meringue. And as it whips and it's working air into it, it will cool off. So you want to sort of pay attention to the bowl temperature because you can't proceed with the next step until everything is room temp. We are going to go until we have very, very stiff peaks. And I'll show you what that looks like. All right, but look at that peak. That's a really, really nice peak. I'm very happy with that. I keep the whisk on the mixer for the first few additions of butter. Eventually I switch to the paddle because I want the paddle does a better job of smoothing out the mixture, whereas the whisk whips and incorporates air. And at a certain point, like I don't really want more air in it. And I'm gonna add the butter one piece at a time on like medium high. So in it goes. I like to like throw them in so they hit the bottom of the bowl. And you want to do this slowly because we don't want to break the emulsion. We want to slowly incorporate the butter. So let's stop and evaluate the texture. I've added most of the butter actually, and oh no, it looks a little curdled. There's like little tiny pieces of butter where there looks like there's a separation. It almost looks like cottage cheese, or like, to me it looks more like ricotta actually, where you see like little curds, right? So I went from the mixture being a little bit warm to adding slightly colder than room temp butter. And now the mixture has gone a little bit too far in the other direction, which is it's a little bit cold. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna switch to the paddle. And before I add any more butter, I'm just gonna sit here and beat the mixture and wait for the temperature to come up a little bit. One thing you can do is you can use your body heat to like warm the side of the bowl a little bit. And you will see that this is going to smooth out, it's going to get really like luscious and look like frosting again. So I'm gonna put on the paddle. Okay, give the sides a scrape. Whew. Gotta get this thing fixed, jeez. Oh, that scared me. So you'll see it come back together, which is an exciting moment. So after less than a minute of beating, we now have a smooth, non-curdled buttercream. As you can see, we haven't added all the butter yet, but now I'm in a place where I feel comfortable moving on, adding the rest of the butter. So a little patience is important. And I'm just waiting until I see the butter disappear before I add the next piece. I'm going to scrape down the sides of the bowl and give it a final mix. You can overbeat it, where then it becomes hard to smooth because you just have tons of little air bubbles. This is looking really good. And that's also why I switched to the paddle, because I don't want to get like really over whip it. The paddle smooths out, it doesn't really whip. Now you have buttercream, you've made it, it is ready to be flavored however you like. Vanilla is wonderful, so I'm gonna add a vanilla bean to this. The key to flavoring buttercream is not adding a ton of liquid. You risk breaking the emulsion and then it's like all your hard work is ruined. So I'm gonna I have a vanilla bean that I split. And this of course will add little tiny flecks in the frosting, but I like seeing that. I like knowing what the flavor is by looking at it. So in these go. So then go ahead and beat this in. You can add I'll add a splash of vanilla. I've already added the bean. It's not that important, but why not? Okay. This, to me, is a classic, perfectly proportioned Swiss buttercream. I've not made this in a long time. It is excellent. So Italian meringue differs from Swiss meringue because you actually take the sugar and rather than dissolving it in the egg whites directly, you cook a sugar syrup to a certain temperature and then you stream it into the egg whites. Timing is very important. So I have all the same ingredients and same proportions and quantities as I had for Swiss meringue buttercream. The flavoring that I'm gonna use today, I'm gonna do a coffee flavored buttercream, one of my favorites. I have a little vanilla as well. Then cream of tartar and a little bit of water for making the sugar syrup. I took about 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and a couple teaspoons of these instant coffee crystals and I dissolved it. And this is our flavoring. This is like a concentrated coffee extract kind of thing. So the first thing I want to do is get my egg whites into the bowl. And to that I'm going to add a pinch of salt. So 1/4 teaspoon cream of tartar, and both the salt and the cream of tartar will help to stabilize the egg whites because we are going to whip them a little bit before I add the sugar syrup. It's like a little bit of a dance. So you gotta get that at the right point as that comes to temp. And I have a small saucepan. I'm going to use this to cook my sugar syrup. And when I say sugar syrup, I just mean sugar dissolved in water. That's all it is. So sugar goes in. Again, that was 3/4 of a cup. Then this is a 1/4 cup of tap water. I like to pour the water around the outside of the pot because I think it helps to like wash down any sugar crystals and prevent crystallization later. So as you have your sugar syrup cooking, have handy a clean pastry brush and a little bit of water, and I'm going to use this to wash down the sides because what we don't want is any crystallization. I have the heat on medium, and as this comes up and starts to boil, I'm actually going to stir it to encourage the sugar to dissolve. And it'll be very clear when it dissolves because it will go from looking kind of cloudy to translucent. And that's how you know that you have everything in solution. And then once it starts to boil, that's when I'm going to stop stirring, because at that point, the more you stir, actually you will end up encouraging the crystals to form. So the mixture just came to a boil. That means I know it's around 212. And what happens is the water is evaporating and being cooked off, and the concentration of sugar is increasing. And so at this point, I'm going to start whipping my egg whites because I need to start to incorporate some air at this point. So I'm going to let that go. And this is the dance. This is like, I'm over here, I gotta, keep your wits about you, be paying attention to the temperature. And as soon as I hit 245, this is coming off the heat. I'm pretty comfortable with this at this point, but like in the early days, I would be like freaking out. Don't touch the bottom of the pot with the thermometer. 241, 242, 243, 245. Okay. So I'm there. I'm gonna take it off the heat, bring it over here. Now I'm gonna get my mixer going. The egg whites look good. Again, I just stopped it because I didn't want to keep beating it. And now, here's the very tricky part. Not only the timing, but the pouring of the syrup into the bowl. If you hit the whisk, you will splatter this sugar everywhere and it doesn't even get into the eggs and then it hardens. So I'm going to pour the syrup down the side of the bowl so that it kind of trickles into the egg whites and doesn't splatter. And I'm beating constantly. And you can increase the speed as this happens. So that's all the syrup. That's now in there. The side of the bowl is quite warm because we put the hot sugar into the eggs. So I want to beat this until the sides are room temp. And now it is just the same process as Swiss meringue. It's room temp butter into room temp meringue, beat it until smooth, and that's it. Now it can be a little tricky because this is very hot. This is hotter than our Swiss meringue. So I'm gonna just let this sit here for a sec, and then I'm gonna start adding the butter. And it's the exact same process as before. I'm gonna start with the whisk attachment. It's a little warm. I think the meringue was a little warm, the butter's a little warm, so you can see that it's looking a little more liquid now. I'm gonna keep going, generally with buttercream, I believe in just kind of like pressing on and hoping for the best, and it almost always works out.
You can fix whatever it is in front of you.
I think that's a good message though, it's like, it's just food.
Yeah.
You know? No. So I'm gonna keep going. If you need to, you can briefly chill your butter. I wouldn't even really chill it, just try to put it in a cool spot. I've added maybe four to 6 tablespoons of butter. It's not looking any more liquid, so that's good. That kind of tells me that the temperature is gonna even out pretty soon. So I'm starting to get a little of that ricotta look. I'm gonna add a little more butter with the whisk, and then I think it'll be a good time to switch to the paddle when I wanna smooth everything out. All right, time to switch curds. It's a little separated. That is okay. Do not worry. So let me give everything a scrape. All right, paddle time. Now we just wait for it to smooth out, come back together. The emulsion will reform, theoretically. Just have faith. I doubted myself for like a second, but then I just was like, no, stay the course, keep going, and lo and behold, it all came back together. So I'm gonna now add the rest of the butter, and then the coffee flavoring, taste. We move on to number 3. So why do this version and not the Swiss version, which is like a little less technical, a little easier? Well, Italian buttercream is, generally speaking, the most stable buttercream you can make. So if you are a professional baker and you are making like wedding cakes and celebration cakes that are gonna be outdoors, they're gonna be in heat under stressful situations, this is a reliable sort of go-to preparation that you know isn't gonna melt, the layers aren't gonna slide around. It's also like a little bit lighter, I think. I'm just scraping the bowl because there's some parts that aren't as well mixed around the bottom and sides. So I'm gonna give it one final mix, and then we'll add our coffee flavoring. So this is only about 2 teaspoons of liquid. You don't really wanna add much more than that. So this is gonna go in. So just beat that in. It's definitely coffee. Part of the reason I love coffee flavor is because you're adding something bitter and like super complex. And when bitter plus super complex meets sweet and creamy, it's a real love match. This is our coffee flavored Italian buttercream. I'm gonna put it in a container, same thing as with Swiss and as with French, the next one I'll show you. You can freeze it, you can chill it, store it. It lasts a really long time. So in it goes, and then I'm gonna set up and show you French, the last style, the most sort of rich and luxurious, and that will be our chocolate buttercream. The third and final European buttercream is French buttercream, and it is the most rich. I wasn't gonna say, but I don't want to say that because I don't really like that word, but it is. So this is a style of buttercream that is formed from a base that has whole eggs and yolks, not just whites. So it is denser, richer. I'm gonna flavor this one with melted chocolate. I have 8 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate that I melted, and it's totally cooled. This is a recipe right out of Dessert Person called my Silkiest chocolate buttercream. And even though I'm using whole eggs plus yolks, it's 2 eggs plus 2 yolks, I am going to put it together exactly the same way I did the Italian meringue buttercream. Eggs go into my mixer with the whisk attachment, have the paddle handy. I'm gonna add my salt, then in my clean small saucepan. So sugar goes in, water goes in. So the book also specifies a slightly different temperature for this buttercream. This will be to 238. But if you were anywhere in like the 238, 240, up to 245, you would be okay. So same thing. Gonna stir until it dissolves and comes to a boil. I'm gonna take the temperature, and I am at, I'm close. Oh my God, I'm really close. So I'm gonna turn the temperature way down because I'm almost there, and I'm gonna start whipping my eggs. So because I'm whipping whole plus yolks, I'm not gonna get like foamy white because I'm not making meringue. So I wanna get this to a ribbon stage, meaning the mixture is moussey and light and kind of thick. So I'm gonna let this go. You'll see when I stop it that it kind of does this ribbon thing, which means that it falls back into the bowl and sits on the surface before it settles. And so my sugar syrup came up to temp. Frankly, it went a little high, but that's okay. Same technique as with Italian. You want to stream this in so that it hits the bowl right where like the level of the eggs and the side of the bowl meet, and not against the whisk. And go slow. This mixer's been working hard. Okay, so I have been beating this on medium-high. It's now very room temp. Same process as before. I'm gonna start adding the butter with the whisk attachment. I'm gonna add one more piece of butter, and then I'm gonna switch to the paddle. I'm at that point that I've now hit 3 out of 3 times where it was a little soupy, then it went from like, you know, soupy and too warm to a little too cold and a little curdled. That is normal. And the more that I make buttercream, the more that I think that these things that like are pitfalls are actually just a normal part of the process. And I guess I'm just saying that because it happened to me all 3 times. All right, paddle goes on and then I can add the rest of the butter. And this should come back together really nicely. You can see the mixture is more yellow because of the yolks. Okay, all the butter is in. So I'm gonna scrape down the sides again, just make sure it's really well mixed. And then I'm gonna let it beat for a little longer because this is the kind of thing where like I want to actually work a little bit of air in, unlike the egg white based buttercreams that, you know, can be over whipped. While it's here, I'll add just a couple teaspoons of vanilla extract. So the last step is to add my flavoring. I have quite a bit of melted chocolate, 8 ounces. When melted chocolate is cold, obviously, it hardens. So melted chocolate will add a setting power, basically, to your frosting if it's chilled, meaning it will make it firmer. So it can all go in. And actually, this is one of my favorite things visually in baking is watching the melted chocolate swirl into the buttercream in the mixer. All right, maybe it didn't swirl in as much as I had promised. Never mind, it just kind of mixed. Oh well, my bad. So good. It spreads so beautifully. I do want to scrape it down and then mix it again briefly because as with the coffee, it's even more pronounced. Like you can really see the places where the chocolate incorporated and then the pale places where it didn't. And I want it all evenly mixed. One final mix. You can obviously flavor any of the styles any way you want. I just happen to go vanilla, coffee, chocolate. And in fact, I'm now thinking of like things that I can make that incorporate all 3 of them, maybe kind of swirl them together.
What'd you think of?
Well, the thing I thought of was just to swirl them together on something, I don't know what. But I am thinking also like, should I make a opera cake? And actually I have no time for that, but should I taste it? Wow. And the texture is so silky, which is why I call it the Silkiest chocolate buttercream. Just because I want you to see what it looks like and how it spreads, I'm gonna cover a cake with all 3. Then anything that's left over is gonna go in the freezer. Now, when I freeze these, what I'm actually going to do is take a little piece of plastic and press it directly onto the surface. That just keeps it like really sealed. Sometimes buttercream can pick up a fridge or freezer taste, and I don't want that to happen. Here I have a layer of a Funfetti cake. So I'm gonna start with my vanilla, the Swiss. This I'm just obviously freehanding it. This is great. You know, the more that buttercream sits, actually, the more challenging it is to spread. If this were sitting much longer at room temp, I probably would have to just paddle it a little bit, smooth it out, but it's still spreading really well. It has just wonderful fluffiness. Make sure that before you serve it, you really give it time to come up to room temp. And the bigger the cake, the longer it will take. So that means to me, like if you are, let's say you frost a layer cake, you stick it in the fridge, and you're serving it for a party, and let's say you think, okay, we'll be eating dessert around 9. I would seriously take it out at like 4 and let it spend many hours getting thoroughly room temp. Okay, so this is the Italian. This is the coffee. I do think it has a slight leg up in terms of texture over the Swiss. Okay, and now for the fluffiest, smoothest, I think best buttercream of all, the chocolate. And this is so easy to spread. It's so smooth. This is why I love making buttercream. They're so versatile. You can really use any flavoring that you like. And then you get a lot back in terms of texture and flavor and also in like usability and application. So it's really stable. You can freeze it, make it ahead. There's so many reasons to try this style based on eggs, so our European buttercreams. And I'm very excited that I have all this for my freezer. Next time I have a cake project, half the work is done. So thank you for watching. Thanks for checking out episodes of Dessert Person, and like and subscribe.
Go up. Go up. Yes. Come on. Go.
Go! Go! Ugh. Quitter. You're a quitter.